Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Today, June 20th, 2022, it is 3 p.m. And I will call this meeting to order, the Fresh Waterways Advisory Board special meeting, where we will be discussing the weed management for this season. All right, now also, as you see that Pam is not here, she's not here to, she won't be here today, so I'll also be taking minutes. So as I'm talking, kind of just bear with me as I'm writing a lot more than I normally do, and I'll also do roll call. So let's see, Phyllis Brown, Greg McKay, here. John, here. Joe, here. And
Sarah.
Steve. And here we have for the city, we have Marshall. Thank you for coming, Marshall. I appreciate that. And we have Grant. Okay. All right. Now, as far as the residents, we have Nani. And then you folks,
One more time.
how you spell your last name?
B-A-L.
Yeah. Did you say John and Cindy?
Yeah,
And you live on Blue Heron Bike?
yes,
You live on the Picasso?
we live on in Cornell.
Oh, so do I.
And then let's see, online we have Robert Lund, the city engineer. Thank you for being here, Robert.
Oh, no problem. Nice to see everyone.
And then we have Susan Delary. Thank you for coming, Susan.
You're welcome. It's nice to be here on Zoom.
Anyone else, Sarah? And then, of course, our awesome city clerk, Sarah. All righty, so we're going to start out with public comment, and I'll start with those that are here in the room, and then we'll get to Zoom. I ask that you keep it to the 3 minutes, and it is just a comment section. We're not going to go back and forth with questions, but any comments that you have that pertains to, since today is a special meeting, as it pertains to the weed treatment of the waterways for this year, please. All right, so we'll go ahead and start off with Nani.
Have they figured out whether or not they're gonna use pesticide versus the machine, or try to do it manually?
Well, that's what we're going to discuss in this meeting.
Okay,
But do you have any comments? I mean,
I would like to see it cleared out because, getting into the water, I kayak. And, some of the areas gets narrow, and, you don't know what's underneath there. And then I've heard from several people that, the weed that everybody talks about, the one, it's the bad one. I finally got to see it. It's under the water. It's not floating on the top, so you can see it. So it was quite enlightening, to say the least.
all righty. Okay. All righty. And then John and Wendy, or one of you, both of you.
Go ahead.
Anyways, we have this weed that's growing on the surface of the canal that it really looks like moths from the roof. Picked it up, compared that to roof moth, and they almost look identical. That's one of the problems. The other is underwater. And one of the things a few years back, after the poisoning off, I took the rate, the dead vegetation off the bottom of the canal, and that probably straight about 10 feet out from once the dock's 20 feet. And easily it's about 50 pounds. It was,
Well, the problem right now is that the wildlife can't even get through this stuff. Like, we have a mom duck and her 3 babies, and they literally cannot swim in that stuff. It's horrible.
Okay. Um, that is going to be, we're going to try to specifically address that, since Greg, who you talked to, and I were out on that canal today. When we get to that section, then we're going to, we might have to explain to the rest of the board members what we saw. Okay, all right. Anything else?
Just limited to up now?
No, to the whole system. I mean,
Oh,
this, oh, you mean those particular weeds?
Yeah.
We saw it throughout the entire Grand Canal, in some of the bells, more towards the mouth of the bells, you know, like sort of under Point Brown. And then we also saw it as it was going out to Menard, and then it kind of dissipated. Yeah, but it's up and down the entire Grand Canal.
It's worse in Blue Heron.
Yeah.
Is that duckweed or?
No.
As far as I can tell, it's something called a zolan.
Huh.
So
It's,
just judging from
we're gonna
pictures.
bring a sample of it, we forgot, but
So we're gonna cover that. We'll cover it when we get to the bell canals. I actually have a note in here.
It's called Azawa.
Yeah, what we're gonna
Okay,
cover.
don't put that on the record. That, I've Googled the picture,
Yeah,
so that's it.
yeah. So we don't know what it is. All righty. Marshall, do you have anything that you want?
Not that would pertain to the weed stuff.
Okay.
I did contact, the owner of the lot that we used for the hazard tree removal. And they were really pleased with how we left things there, and asked if we could anchor 2 sections of those logs on their shoreline. And I said I would try to split the raft of logs up and give them 2, and then put the others on the other side. So. And we don't have that scheduled yet. But as soon as we have staff, we'll get that on the schedule.
All right, yeah, as soon as you do that, then I will contact Grant, John, and Phyllis as well. And we'll figure out where you want those logs to go and all that good stuff. Okay, beautiful, thank you. All righty, so Susan Dallaire, do you have anything that, any public comment for this meeting?
Well, I didn't sign up to make public comment, but I will say, since removing some of the floating pennywort from just around our dock area, it exposed more of the milfoil, I'm pretty sure it is. And I've seen some humongous grass carp just eating away at the milfoil. They just kind of tug on it and eat it. So that was an interesting thing to watch and to learn. So I'm interested in what this board is doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, Robert, are you just listening in?
I'm just listening in and waiting for the discussion on the treatments this year and the mechanical.
Okay, we're getting into that right now.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear, because I might need to ask you a question or two when we get to the mechanical part of it. I printed out the email you sent to me, but you might be a little more help. All right, so everybody has their survey that Doug Dorling did for us on May 17th. What I want to do here is I want to go to each advisory board member. I know you guys have talked with other residents, and then we've listened to what these folks have said, and then also what residents have said over the last few years in our meeting on how they feel about the treatment, the different types of treatment and things like that. So what I'd like to do is go to each member. You give your thoughts to us. Tell us, if there's anything that's near and dear to you, if you think that there's an area that should not to be treated, or if you feel that there's an area that we should stay away from, or that whatever you think on the entire report. Okay, we'll go from there. All right, Phyllis.
Overall, in looking at
Doug's reports, it appears that some areas maintained well over the course of the year, while other areas did not. In looking at the Bell Canal, some areas are definitely a lot worse. And we get into the same problem of the low water area and low circulation. If they're not treated, there will not be any access. And I would be surprised if there's not going to be access by the middle of next month because it's growing so fast. The Lake Menard area, the canal there under the bridge has been treated every year. That is again because of the shallowness and the narrowness of it. On the wider part, on the west side that Doug is recommending treating on, as he stated, that hadn't been treated for 6 years. That's an area that I live on. And I can see just over the course of the last couple of months that if it's not treated within the next middle of July, it will be up out of the water again. The Grand Canal, same areas again that we're treating every year. People are, if we don't treat the Grand Canal, there will not be access in the Grand Canal for anybody. So it's kind of like, that is that. Now, when we talk about the Grand Canal at the Ocean Way, page number 9, is it page number 9? Yes. Doug didn't do all of them. There was, in 2000, number 10, look at page number 10. On the top picture, for 2022, there's that little offshoot that curves around and connects into Duck Lake. He didn't do that. He did that in 2021. But he didn't do that this year. And that's a pretty narrow little strip. That's a connecting strip. And that's not addressed.
I think he did. It's
It's over there.
this is overlapping. It's like 9 and 10. They kind of overlap.
Well, I thought that at first too. This is this. But the way that this here hooks around and curves, and it doesn't go into here. So I didn't.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you want to know what there is?
He
a
didn't
canal
do that.
There's one, yes.
There's one canal that he missed, like right here.
That's Fishhook.
Yes, they should.
And that's
Oh, that's the-
page 12.
Okay.
Oh, you were down here?
Yeah, it was down here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought you were
That's
talking about
Fishhook?
these.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't identify his fish hook. I was like, okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
if you go.
You're right. Okay.
Page
Okay,
12.
wrong page, sorry. He did address it. Now, fish hook, I don't know, the offshoots, well, let's go back to page 11 here. The offshoots, don't look as bad as what they did in 2021 to me. That certain areas are going to need to be treated, otherwise they're going to be clogged up and you're not going to get there. A fish hook now, I don't even want to talk about. It's like, it's if you don't treat it, how are you going to get through? From fish hook, from Duck Lake to all the other canals and systems in the lake. It's just, you have to do something. And I don't think mechanical harvesting for that area is an option due to the cost and due to the size of it. And the fact that we have no control over the spray not floating into the areas. We just don't. And then Bass Canal, we don't want to treat it. So I said, don't treat it.
Do you have any opinion about the parrot feather and mechanical harvesting portion?
Parrot feather is a must. We have to treat it. If we don't treat it, it is going to take over the whole entire system. Just over the past 2 years, where it started out over by the Tonkin Bridge on Lake Menard in the Oihut Canal, it has spread throughout the Bell Canals and due to most likely boat traffic, because there's the boat ramp there at Oihut and traveling through. And if we don't control it, it's going to be all over the whole system into Duck Lake. And it is it's a very invasive weed that has to be controlled. Otherwise, it's worse than the other. Mechanical harvesting. I have issues with mechanical harvesting due to how in the world are we going to do it successfully? Offloading the weeds that are harvesting, the cost of the harvester to cut the weeds and transport it to a place that is going to be offloaded. We can only, at this time, due to budget constraints, do 8 acres, and that's going to cost us $45,000. And in order for it to be somewhat successful, even, we have to do that twice a year. And plus the fact that when you harvest, you are not going to get all the little pieces that break off, and we're going to be spreading it worse throughout the whole system than what it already is.
Perfect. Anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Beautiful, Greg.
I'm just a little concerned about the temperature and when the survey was conducted. It just feels to me like it's just waiting for it's been everybody knows it's been a really cold spring. As soon as we go up another 5-10 degrees, everything's just gonna explode. So I think, I hate to say it, but I think we need to do all the suggested chemical treatment. I don't like it, but you know, I also don't like not being able to navigate. As far as parrot feather, yeah, I agree. It definitely needs to be taken care of. We saw it over in Blue Heron today. And that's a long way for it to travel. As far as mechanical harvesting, I think we should try it just to see what happens. I think north end of Grand Canal would probably be the best bet because it's dense up there and I don't know. I just think it'd be a good place to try. Good trial site. And I don't think we should topically administer the herbicide to the pennyworm this year. Last year when we did the submerged, it took a lot of it out. I think it's a waste of money. Take that money for the pennyworm, put it on the parrot feather.
So one thing to note though is that the parrot feather is only topically treated.
Yeah, I know that.
And Doug can't treat it from his souped up nozzle boat, right? It's topical.
Yep, I understand that, but I mean, that's another necessary.
Maybe just a tree,
Yeah.
which is what we've done.
Okay, anything else? All right, John.
First off, you just threw a curveball at me. So the parrot feather can only be treated topically. Because
And it's done at a different time. He has to literally use a completely different herbicide and he has to schedule all of that. Can't do it on a windy day. If you remember last year where the second treatment was considerably after the first treatment. And he had to keep canceling. Well, I don't say keep. I know that he canceled at least one day, but he canceled days. because of the wind.
Yeah, well,
So that's just something to think about. I mean, but, okay, you go.
the herbicide, I know it is a necessary evil. And as you guys know, that have been around me for a while, the pennywort, especially in the fishhook canals last year after they were treated, and I went down to Grants and I was looking at fishhook canals and talking about the devastation, bank to bank devastation. I'm still opposed to that. I understand, like, you get to the north end of Grand Canal where the pennywort is mighty ugly, but I also agree with Greg is that might be a good opportunity to try the mechanical harvester. And then I digress back to Fishhook Canal and perhaps some of the offshoot fingerling canals is going back to what you, Grant, and I talked about last year. And we haven't been able, because of people's medical conditions, been able to try and experimenting with the manual mechanical harvesting of pennywort in the Fishhook Canal and some of the other finger canals. I am so opposed to the overall general herbicide spraying, especially when it affects the pennywort. I agree with what Doug said. Yeah, the pennywort gets out in the middle of the navigation problem. Sure it is, but what we talked about would eliminate that navigation problem. And if the homeowners, as I've said, don't like pennywort around their docks or the access to their docks, they can go out and manually remove it instead of spraying it down with chemicals. And I think that's about it.
So when we did the last year, you, Grant, and I went out there and tried to move the big mats
Right.
of pennywort. Were you folks here last year?
We've been here for 20 years.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Okay, all right. Did you posted those pictures on Facebook, didn't you?
I did.
Did you see his pictures of the huge mats of
We
pennywort?
had them floating in front of our door.
Okay, all right. The reason why I asked is because, and Nani, are you on Facebook? Did you see those?
The pictures?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, because what I want to bring up right now is specifically about the pennywort, since you're talking about that, is that it was just these three, Grant, John, and myself, we went out there, and that was some of the heaviest work. It was ridiculous, right? I mean, the boat was even having a hard time. Grant did a great job of navigating that junk out of Fishhook Canal. So I'm just saying that so that we're kind of just all, sort of divulging this in our brains is that when we talk about whether it's residents go out and if they want to get the pennywort out from around their docks or around their property, or in the openings of, Ocean Winds and the other canals that are over in that area, that's a really, really heavy process. And remember, we talked about it and I said, listen, if we really want to do this manual harvesting of the pennywort, we really need to get in that water in April when it is a lot less.
Right, we're way behind on it right now, and I'd hope for something sooner in the year to start working on it, but
Yeah, I know.
the heaviness and the work we did last year, as I've said time and time again, we learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
We don't have to tear that stuff out by the roots. I would not, and I'm opposed to tearing it out by the roots. It's good habitat for the fish. We found 2 bass babies in it. You
Well,
know,
that is what we were trying to do. I'm saying this so that everybody can hear what we did was that is
No,
we
that-
were
yeah.
trying to keep some of it, but as you pull it, it just comes. So I don't know, Grant,
Well-
engineer, you might be able to do some crazy cut weed eater or something that we could get in there and kind of just cut it in little map sections, something to think about.
yeah,
something
well,
to-
that was something we talked about before was, you know, I've got a cordless, hedge trimmer
Yeah.
with a long cutter on it. You go alongside it, cut it off even with the docks or whatever,
Mhm.
open the navigation channel, we take the big workboat, we put a screen net across the front of it, use it as a bulldozer to shove it on down where we want to put it to be removed. I mean, again, you know, yeah, last year when we were playing with it and experimenting with it, it was a valuable learning lesson, and we do not have to work that hard to get
Yeah.
that out of there.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I was just kind of bringing that up so that for people who are online on Zoom and here, they could kind of get a little bit of the history of what we have tried to do.
Yeah.
You have anything else, John?
No, I wrap it up with, as I said, is my main point is the bank to bank.
Yeah.
Devastation of Pennyworth, I think has got to quit. And it's unfortunate that the parrot feather has to be topical because I'm sure then the Pennyworth's gonna get nailed too, which, you know, kind of breaks my heart, but, you know, when you were at my place there the other day, the Pennyworth I have down by my dock, I live on Duck Lake. And, we have just recently gotten Pennyworth there. I'm gonna leave it. Yeah, I'm gonna-
Manage it. Manage it. Manage it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, anything else?
That's
No.
it.
Joe?
Well, you guys know my feeling about the herbicide thing. I'm at 100%, 190% against it.
Okay.
I don't think we ought to herbicide any of the water. It all gets around to different canals. It affects everything in that canal. It affects anything that drinks the water out of that canal for a period of a week afterwards. It affects the fish indirectly. I know they say the herbicides don't kill the fish, and they probably don't. The herbicides themselves do not kill the fish. What kills the fish is killing the surroundings of the fish. Kill the fish. So there's no baby fish, there's nothing can come through that. And then so all of what baby fish are born, all the perch and everything just eat them up. So we never see a good balance of nature in the waterways. It's always dead. When it comes to natural fish, I'm not talking about planted trout and steelhead. I'm talking about crappie, bass, bluegill. They've been deplenished for the last 10 years and they haven't come back. And they ain't going to if we keep herbicide. So I'm dead against it.
Okay.
There's probably, I would like to see more harvesting. If we don't have enough money to harvest, we'll get more money. We gotta find a way to get more money, if that's what it's gonna take. Right now, we're paying a guy almost $80,000 herbicide, according to the figures I read this morning. And I don't know how much, I don't know where we're coming up with that $45,000 figure. As far as doing,
45,000, yeah, 45 is because that is what the city gave us to use.
okay, well, I don't know if
We have
that's
to-
accurate or not.
We have to stay in that 45,000.
Yeah, I don't know if that's accurate or not. I mean,
What do you mean?
I haven't actually had anybody, has anybody in here come in and talk about herbicide? Have we had anybody
Okay,
come in here and talk
wait, just one
about it?
sec. What do you not know as a fact that we have 45,000?
No, what I'm saying is, I don't know if it costs $45,000 to harvest.
Yeah, we have that from Doug.
He doesn't harvest.
Yeah, he's going to contract it out.
Yeah,
That's something that
okay.
the city has to.
And when I brought this up last time, Nick shut me up in the middle of it because there is somebody that does harvesting where you don't have to go out and hire someone and mark it up to do the job. That's what they do is harvest. And it's a lot cheaper than that 45,000. I had a chance to talk to them a lot about it, but until we actually sit down and get solid figures, we're really not gonna know what it's gonna cost. She's gotta come out and look at the waterway.
Okay, so,
So I don't know why we haven't ventured into this a little bit more since we have been talking about it for over a year.
okay, so let me explain that. I'll explain that, all right? Is that we had, actually it was Nick Bird last fall is that when he asked for a budget increase, well, asked to replace the money that we had used over the budget for herbicide treatment in 2021, he asked council to bring that back, or to get that back, which was 14,000 some change, right? That we had gone over.
Yeah,
In
I
addition to
that.
that, right, in addition to that, he had asked for 45,000 specifically to get in and do a trial of mechanical harvesting so that we could check out what's all the logistical issues, those things, right? And so where we are now is if we were to go outside of Doug, Robert, who's the acting public works, he's the city engineer. You could talk about this when we get to the mechanical harvesting a little bit, but if we were to go and try to use somebody different than Doug under this, we would have to go through a whole different contracting process, which could or could not get accomplished in the time frame that we need to do this in. So the 45,000 was going to trial, not at how much can we, who's the lowest bidder or who was the best bid and all that. As it was, let's ask council for the money and we'll go from there. So council did provide that money into the Fund 438, which funds all of this. And at our February meeting, Angie Folkers was here, the finance director, to explain all that to us. So we know that we have that 45,000, and I believe that the city is going to try to use that in the best way possible, which is to go through Doug Dorling, because Doug would have to work with that person anyway, so that we are not overlapping herbicides. If herbicides are put down, we do not want to put herbicides anywhere near where there's mechanical harvesting, because then of course you're never really going to get a good trial, right? So that's where we are. Well, I'm not saying that this is how we would do it every year going forward, but this will still give us a trial.
So
So
we
we can
have
figure-
with him one more year? Is that what you're saying with Doug Dorling?
Well, Doug, if you recall, we're in a 2-year contract with
I
Doug.
remember that, but I'm just,
So 2021 and 2022 is his contract.
Okay.
And this is the last year of that. And then we would have to go back out and bid for this type of work again, not necessarily herbicides, but aquatic weed management. Okay. Hopefully by that time, we also have the IAPMP and things like that, but I don't want to get off on that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to explain where this $45,000 came from.
well, that's where I'm at. I mean, since it was my turn to talk and I had
Yes.
trying to put in, I'm against herbicides.
Yes.
I see what it did to Bass Canal. Last year it was beautiful. I mean, the fishing was great. Everything was good. They came through and harvested, and within 2 weeks, it was a mud hole. There was no plant life anymore. The fish were gone. I don't know where they went, but something happened. And I'm thinking that's happening every single year, and that's our problem here, as far as fishing is concerned. Now, I guess what we have to decide as a group is, do we want just a concrete canal? Or do we want fish habitat? Or do we want recreation habitat as far as boating and everything? I don't see many people swimming in the water.
Who would? Not me.
I mean, nobody swims it. I mean,
Yeah.
You have?
by accident.
Did you come out brown?
Okay,
orange?
wait.
Didn't do a bloody thing.
Okay.
But all I'm saying is, if we're trying to do something so people can swim in the water, there's nobody swimming in it that I see. I mean, I've never seen anybody swim. I've seen people boating in it. I've seen people doing stuff in it, but I never see anybody swimming. Therefore, I guess the reason why I brought that up is for this reason. Why are we herbiciding the water to make a clear water free of all weeds so people can swim? And because that's what I've been told in the past. That's why we want a clear waterway, so people can swim without getting hung up in the weeds. And I don't see a reason for it. I think it's more important to get a fish habitat going on. Get back to where we were before, where people came from all over the state to fish this lake and do tournaments here, bring money into the city. It ain't happening anymore. People come in when they drop trout in, they catch them up, they're gone. It's just not the lake it used to be, and I want to see it get back to its prime.
Okay.
You know, anyway, that's where I'm at.
All right. So before we go on to Graham, I just want to say this is that, yeah, you know, Joe, over the last 18 months, you and I have had many, many one-on-one discussions at your property at the Bass Canal. And so what you just said, you kind of took some things that I said that you and I discussed a little bit out of context there about the whole swimming and all of that kind of thing.
You never said that, Jim. I'm talking about somebody else.
But you were talking
Had
something
nothing
else,
to do
I
with
would say, because when you and I were talking about swimming,
Nothing to
it
do with
was, the idea was is what I have heard from residents and what they were looking for. All right. Aside from that, is that your point of no herbicides, or just all mechanical or manual harvesting, whatever, is going to be a great point to make when we're going through the IAVMP and the lake management study, if we can get that going, right? But where we are today is, what do we do with the system that we currently have, right? And so you put aside what do we want to do in the future. I mean, I think we kind of, at some point, you kind of have to do that and go, well, here we are in June of 2022, and are we just going to let the weeds flourish? And I mean, you go down Greg's canal, Greg after the meeting can show you the picture. It's ridiculous, right? And I guarantee you would not want to live on that canal, because I know how you like a clean canal. So
I like weedy canals.
you would like that, trust me. So, no, his is a weed we haven't even seen before. So you go in there, I could barely get a boat through it today, by the way, to go pick them up. So the thing is that what we know that people want to do in ocean shores, traditionally in ocean shores, has always been boating. There's pictures of it back in 1970 of people boating in the Grand Canal, doing water skiing and all this stuff. So boating has always been the big thing out here, right? That's just one thing. But whether it's boating or whether it's swimming or whether it's throwing a ball in the Grand Canal so your dog can jump in and go get it, whatever it is, if any of that gets mixed up in the Eladia or the milfoil, or God forbid, that ridiculous parrot feather, they're gonna have a really, really tough time getting out of it, right? So it isn't the fact that it is just in one area, it's throughout the whole system, right? So I just wanted to say that so that you can understand where it is that we're coming from.
I know the
But
philosophy.
I have just two more things for you real quick. You didn't mention anything about mechanical harvesting other than you want to do that. Do you have an area that you think would be better area to try this mechanical harvesting?
Yeah, well, I was looking at the maps, and
Right.
there are some hot spots on the map.
Mhm.
And I think we ought to attack those hot spots with mechanical harvester. Leave the rest alone. Don't herbicide it, just attack those areas. And
Well,
then,
remember, we can only just do 8 acres, so.
well, the spots that I'm seeing, there's not very many red spots in the lake that I can see, according to the map that Doug
Right.
provided.
And that was May 17th when he did that with the water nice and cool. If you go out today, because I know what it looked like on May 17th, because I was out on the water the very next day in my boat. And I can tell you that it is night and day today compared to May 17th. And so is Fisher Canal. Fisher Canal is a disaster right now. All right, so I've got that down for you. What about Bass Canal? Because remember, we've talked, and I don't know if you talked with Bob and Carol, but what do the residents of Bass Canal want?
Bob did
Zero.
not want any herbicide anymore.
Okay,
And I had a chance to talk a little bit about that on Saturday or Friday.
okay,
He didn't want any more herbicides either. Matter of fact, I've talked to 6 different families on Bass Canal. Nobody wants herbicides anymore.
so,
The only one that I know that does, and I'm not gonna mention your name, but there's one family on there that wants herbicides. That's what they've done ever since they've been here for a long period of time. And they don't mind the herbicide. Well, I was thinking that if we could get a harvester in Bass Canal, if it's possible to get underneath the bridge,
yeah,
That's the only concern I have is if we can get in there. We probably could get the one that Grant has in there if it's operational, but I don't think we can get the new style harvester in there because it's too tall. I think, I don't know. See, I don't know. I've never actually had anybody come out and measure all that and see if they can get in. But we both, Bob including, would like to see just a couple pathways of weeds just maintained in there and let the edges grow. And we can all take care of our own ducks. Like I pulled out a bunch of penny wart around my duck.
Well, just something to consider is that, remember that the Bass Canal residents, you talked with 6, there's a lot more people who live on Bass and Dolphin than 6 families. And I can tell you, I mean, me personally, I could really care less if people want to call and complain, right? Because I get that. But about that we're using herbicides, we're not using herbicides, we did their canal, we didn't do their canal. But who's really probably going to get these phone calls are people who you have, one sitting right here in this room, Marshall, and the other one on Zoom, Robert Lund. Those are the people who are going to get the phone calls. So I can tell you, if I get a phone call, the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, talk to Joe Hukacek and Bob Carroll.
Bring them on.
No, I'm just telling you.
Bring them on.
Right? I'm just telling you because here's the thing is, if you can't mechanically harvest the Bass Canal, right? And that would probably be pretty tight. That means nothing is done, right? And so I'm all on board with, if it's a unanimous thing with the Fresh Waterways Board, no matter what it is, I'll go to whoever and say, this is what the board decided, unanimous or not unanimously, but by majority vote, and I will defend that. But when we have just, 6 families on one canal who say, do not do this. So just something to consider, because we're not even to that point yet.
And we have not sent out our surveys yet to find out really what people want. But I think you're gonna find out probably more people are not gonna want herbicides than you think.
Yeah.
And they probably don't know the outcome of that, but they know they don't want herbicide. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, see, so this is part of the whole deal with the IAVMP and lake management study, where everyone can get educated on this. And then you just have to go with what you believe. What are your personal convictions? And I'm all on board with that. I don't sit here and try to change anyone's mind, as long as the person is making an educated decision and not just looking out their back window and going, my canal looks like X, and this is what I think everybody should do. So if folks are educated and truly understand what is in the water, what's going on with the soil, all of that, 60 years of that system really and truly not being managed on any level, and other than us doing these herbicides and just volunteers out there trying to keep trees and junk out of it. That's kind of where we are right now, is we're in an area where this is really kind of completely different than what Ocean Shores has done in the past, right? And so that IAVMP, the lake management study, I hope to see you there at every single one of those public meetings. And you got to give, you have to say that.
Give my opinion about it too.
Yeah, you're going to have to do that, right? So that these folks who are paid, these consultants who are paid to do this, can listen to all of that and then get that back to us. Okay. Anything else, Joe?
Yeah. In response to Phyllis, as far as the mechanical harvester, one of her concerns was the mechanical harvester breaking up the weeds and then they float around.
Yeah.
Who's to say that somebody's boat motor doesn't do the same thing?
Sure.
I mean, I see boat motors going up and down Bass Canal and just leaving the weeds chopped up all over the place that were in there. So what's the difference? I mean, they're still going to get spread around.
Yeah.
To me, that's irrelevant. What's more important to me that I can see, and I think I speak for a lot of people that live in the area here, is they're tired of toxic poison in our waterway. And I feel that way too. I feel strongly about it. And how we're gonna solve that is, the only way we're gonna solve it is to start the harvesting and then find out really what it's gonna cost us to do it. And then we'll have a more of an educated idea of what it's gonna cost to do this. Yeah, we got a $45,000 budget. We say we can get 8 acres, maybe you can do more than that.
Yeah.
Maybe we could use some of the money that Doug Dorling's budget and use it towards the harvesting too. You know, maybe he can do spots of poisoning or whatever around people's houses, like their house poison, water around their house. But for the most part, let's get the harvesting done.
All right,
Use as much money of that towards harvesting.
I'll remember that. And that would be a question that I can ask Robert. I don't know if that's something that he would know off the cuff, but we could ask.
I know we shaved off the budget last year.
We did what?
We shaved off the budget last year because we didn't do some things that was recommended.
No, we actually spent a lot more money than what was.
So that was spending less money.
No. We spent $14,000 more.
Oh, did
That's
okay.
why
I didn't know
the
that.
city had to, when they went and asked for that money to be returned, it was all under one request.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, Grant,
Oh, I've been here 25 years. The Fresh Waterway Corporation funded building a harvester. I designed to build it. And we have about $32,000 into it. The mouth of it is about shaped like a U. And we only had, I was prudent because I was testing it at the same time. I only powered the bottom set of cutters. In one season, we hauled out over 100 bags of Eladia. Now, I say bag, it's from here over to Steve long and about 6 foot in diameter. And we kept cutting, and the small boats came and took the bags, took them ashore. And we had a trailer and a winch, he pulled them out. And when the Eladia came out, it lost its water, it got much lighter. And they took it and they dumped it. They unzipped the bag, emptied it, rolled it back up again, brought it back out. The harvester had about 6 bags, so we just kept cutting. In that summer, we did over 100 bags. And this is just Eladia. And we just put a dent in the lake system. And we spent in Bell System probably the better part of a day. We had 2 outboards pushing the harvester into the weeds. And the weeds were so thick, they were a mat. And we turned the motors off and we just pulled the weeds in. They were so matted, we just pulled them in, one on each side, pulled them in, and stuffing them in the bag that was in the back. And I don't know how many bags we got out of the Bell System, the entrance, just to make a path through it. And so there's a couple things I learned. It was a good harvester, that it needs a transmission. That's the weak link right now. It needs 3 of them, so we use all 3 cutters. And no matter, the nets were like less than an inch in diameter. So when we cut it, we entrapped everything until it's pulled out of the water. There was no mechanical thrashing at all. And so what we've learned is that it can work, but it can't do the whole lake system. It has to do like spot areas, like navigation channels, stuff like that. And like Bell System. And that's why I'm curious to see this new harvester working and see how they do. One of the big drawbacks of the harvester is how do you get the weeds out? The Duck Lake doesn't have enough access points. You have to take the weeds so far to get them out to an access point to get them out of the lake system. You have to pull them out because otherwise they'll just recede. So you have to pull them out. You have to have a system. But the longer it is between the harvester and the access point, the slower and more expensive it's going to be. And so, but what we did, we were very successful. Bob Rhodes and Phyllis, she was aware of what we did too. And they're good, they're clean. Shut this thing off. There. But I'm curious to see how the harvester works, but the lake needs more access points. The Bass Canal is case in point. I don't think any harvester will fit underneath that bridge. My cutters are like 8 feet tall, and that won't get through. They need an access point inside the belt system, inside the Bass Canal system. And the city owns property at the very head. They could put a launch point there where they could retrieve weeds, but it means pulling all the weeds up to the top end. And so, but I wish I had my pictures. I could bring them, show everybody, because people, only Phyllis and I really know what the harvester is capable of, and what another one is. The others usually thrash, and like you say, they tend to send seeds around. And so, but that's one of the advantages of the one we did. We dismantled the harvester part, and it's used as a cutting boat for the tree faller, because it's highly maneuverable, short, can get in tight places. And so then it would mean climbing in and reassembling everything, flushing out the systems. But anyway, out of the attitude that we need to manage the lake. It's not priority for skiing, it's not priority for fishing, it's not priority for swimming. It's for everything. We have to find a balance. And one way to do that is to emphasize maybe one thing over another thing in certain areas. And parts of the Duck Lake are good for bass fishing, and parts were good for water skiing. The pennywort is good for shoreline protection of small fish. Right now, the perch are eating up the little bass fingerlings. And I'd like to know who got the perch in there, because I tell everybody that if you get your perch, take it out and put it in your garden. Because they'll eat the little fingerlings, and I've seen them. I've caught 9-inch bass out here. And they're out there, but if the fingerlings can't get past the perch, you never will get any bass unless you bring in some really grown adult bass. They can eat perch. But we have rakes, pull the LED out. We have rakes, and we have grappling hooks in the corporation to be used to snag pull it in the shore. Now, what I think would be good is if we use that battery operated trimmer, and we go offshore about 3 to 4 feet and just stick it down there and cut it off, because the only 3-4 feet is where they have roots down the ground. So we just cut them off, the rest of it just floating. And so we can pull that out, then we could go along with a canoe right along the shoreline. One guy with a paddle, the other guy with a hedge trimmer, just cut that off, and the canoe will go right through it. And then once it's cut off from shore, then we can snag it, pull it out in the little canal or dock or whatever. And then we can catch it like a seine neck. And then we can tow it to an access point or an overflow. So if we have multiple nets, you can take the whole net and just tie it ashore, then whoever comes with the truck or whatever can pull the access net into shore, just like a seine net. And then get the weeds out of the water directly and put them in a truck.
Well, Grant,
Yep,
that actually might be something good, that we could try,
yeah,
you and, John, if you're filling up to it, Joe, if you're filling up to it.
On Monday.
On Mondays, I hear you, right? And then we can figure out what day and time is best, because we all got stuff going on.
Yep.
And we could try that and just kind of see, and actually, there's a couple of areas that we might be able.
yeah,
Couple in Fish Hook that are already starting to get a little
Yep.
crazy. And then over there in Ocean Winds and the opening the Bell Canal. Those are a few of the areas that I noticed today that anymore starting to, it will become a nuisance in about 2 weeks.
I know the entrance to Bell System, the North Grand Canal will turn into a bog. And the head of a lot of little finger canals, they'll get some kind of melody in Pennyward. We had property one time ahead of one of the canals, and we had to put a board down to get out to the water. And that board was about 12 inches wide. We could walk out that board to get to the boat. It was that thick.
And so your opinion on the herbicide part of it?
I avoid the herbicide if it can be harvested. Like Joe said, it's, I think, a last resort. And when they use herbicide in the fish hook, it may have killed the pennywort, but it turned into a cesspool. The whole canal looked like a cesspool. I mean, terrible.
Last year with that.
And so if there's a way to harvest it mechanically, like if the landowners use the grappling hooks and the rakes to pull it ashore, if the city can be called and take these weeds and load them into a truck and take them off to the airport or somewhere and dump them and let them rot.
Okay.
But I avoid the poisoning of the weeds, but the darn pennywort is good for fish along the shore.
Mhm.
And so our job is to manage.
Mhm.
And so, but if it gets out of the control, then it's our position to step in and cut off that island and give it a new home.
Exactly. I'm kind of thinking, looking at it, I was looking at the forecast and it looks like it might start giving us a few heated days. So maybe in a week or two, I'll monitor it because I typically go out there, once every other day or so, especially with the fish hook, to make sure things are just cleared. Do you have anything else specifically about the? Yeah, go ahead.
Do one thing, the fish hook and probably other areas, late summer has a bloom, algae. And then the reason for that is the water stagnant and it's not flowing. And because the rain has stopped, there's no water going over the overflow. And I'll bring it up in the past and I'll bring it up again. We need to raise the lake up about 6 inches or so with a add-on barrier there at the spillway earlier in the year, so we can raise the water up. And then when fall comes, we can temporarily for like a day or so, or 2 days, whatever, drop that down and draw the water through the system and flush out the algae. And so, and then we can raise it back up again until the algae gets bad again. And it would be a natural way to do it. Very uninvasive.
Mhm. Well, again, that right there is a great thing to bring up if we get the lake management study.
Yep.
Because the weir is definitely, I'm sure it's going to be quite important in their overall study.
Yep.
And I'm sure over on the stormwater master plan that weir has some usefulness. It will probably be part of that study as well. We just have to get to that point, right?
Yep.
Okay, anything else for the weed management for this particular treatment?
No,
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna quickly, first, let me say that actually what everybody had to say, I agree with a lot of that. There's parts, Joe, just so that you know, there's parts of what you say that I agree with, you know that, right? I'm not the first one, I'm not sitting here jumping for joy, saying, hey, let's go put herbicides in the waterways, but we are where we are, right? We're here, we have to deal with what has not been done in the waterways. And also I would imagine that, and Grant, you've been here for many years, Phyllis for 10 years, and I'm sure there was probably some reason that the herbicides maybe was predominantly used because maybe it was the cheapest way at the time to get around part of the issues that was happening in 2006 and 2007. Bob Rhodes is not here today, but I know that he and we've talked many, many times about this. And, telling me very much of what Grant said, where Bob Rhodes was worked with Grant on that whole project. And he was telling me a story about how he and Carol were out in their little boat and they got stuck in the middle of Duck Lake because of all the weeds. It burned their motor up. I don't know if you remember that, Grant, or not, but Bob has told me that a few times. So, this is where we are, right? And I haven't heard anybody saying that they're jumping up and down, yay, let's go use herbicides on the waterways. But something has to be done. And I'm just curious, right, of the residents that are here and of the board, how many of you have been out on the waterways in whatever vessel in the last 2 weeks?
Well, we won't put our.
I know you are. Yeah, I wouldn't either. Nani, you're in a kayak. Where do you put in?
I either use one of my friends that live on the upper part of the lake, near, I'm not good at this. I don't know what the name of the streets and stuff, but like over that side.
North of the airport?
Yeah, going that way.
Oh, that's a whole different part of the
And
system
so
when it comes to this.
and then also I looked at Bass Canal.
Yeah.
I was gonna come in because I was looking for some property and stuff like that. And then a friend of mine lives over there as well. I remember that place had a whole bunch of water lilies. It was just beautiful. It looked almost like where the casino is. And then now it's like really crappy, but it's coming back.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's coming back.
Yeah.
And now in regards to what you just said.
Oh, wait, I was just,
Oh, sorry.
all right, because I'm just trying to take a quick, how about you guys? How many of you have been on the water in the last 2 weeks? All right. Do you not see that when Greg and I were out there today and we went into the Bell, we went into Lake Menard, just into it and turned around and came back because we all know all you got to do is cross Tonquin Bridge and see the disaster that Menard is.
I have on my dock and I can see.
Or Phyllis's dock, who's over by the Texmar kayak launch. If you haven't been over there, go there. If you really want to have fun with weeds, go to Texmar kayak launch. We also did Raccoon Lagoon, Blue Heron Bayou, and we went up about a half a mile on Grand Canal. What'd you say?
Oh, never mind, it wasn't Otter Alley.
Yeah. Oh, Otter Alley's a mess too. That's where Todd lived. And so my point with this is that what this report shows of May 17th, and Doug Dorling clearly says it in here. He actually used the word explode. And now we're seeing that the temperature is getting there. Just out of curiosity, when did you guys start noticing that junk?
A while ago.
A while ago?
Or so.
How long has it been where it's completely covered the canal?
Oh, a couple of weeks now.
A couple weeks, okay.
And it's just worse. I mean, it's like it's clear up and down. You saw it.
I did,
The whole.
yeah, it's halfway, it's until you go and take that
It
turn.
was kind of in spots and it was kind of moving each day.
Yeah.
As you know, the water goes a little bit, but now it's just.
It was all down at our end yesterday, and the wind blew it up to you guys.
it's-
Okay, so while I'm talking, do you have the picture? I want to pass this around, because I want people to see this picture.
And I'll just make one comment. I am taking a Master Gardener program and I will take a piece of that to my training on next week and I'll have them look at it as well.
Okay.
Maybe we can identify it a little bit better just because I don't know that much about it, but.
Have you considered sending the pictures to Doug and see if he knows what it is?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that, but, so I'm gonna get mine and I'm gonna pass my phone around so that everybody, okay, I'm sorry,
Oh, he's gonna show.
So this is Blue Heron Bayou today, 5 hours ago, right? 6 hours ago. All right. So here's my take on this is that knowing what I see here in the survey under the water, that's what this is. This is done by a sonar under the water. And then what I see topically, all of Lake Menard along the shore lines, the sides, the shores, Bell Canal, Grand Canal, I'll get back to Grand Canal in a minute, all the way down. So I'm on the south end, Grand Canal, right by your place. And I'm on the south end Grand Canal. And if you look at your, if you go to page 10, and that is the south end Grand Canal, you all know where I am. And it is pretty much blue, right? It's not today. And it's not when my wife is out there with that crazy aquatic rake about every 4 or 5 days and getting tons of weeds. I saw my neighbor across the canal, Mike Avaleo, who was out there yesterday with his rake, having a wonderful time. That end of the Grand Canal we did not do because it wasn't as bad. And we were trying to not use as much herbicides. Remember that? When I specifically said, let's not do the south end Grand Canal, let's try to use less herbicides, okay? Now, my end of the Grand Canal is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. That if I were to get in that canal, I guarantee you my legs would then be fully submerged in milfoil and elodea, right? So forget about swimming. My boats are literally, my props are completely in my boats, are completely entangled in that as they just sit at the dock, right? Both of my boats. And so that's what I'm dealing with, right? So last year I said, well, let's not treat the South End Grand Canal to use less herbicides. And this is what I'm dealing with today, right? Bishop Canal 2 weeks ago had to have been worse than this because I was over at Grant's house with John, right? And I could see how bad the weeds had gotten when we were there doing that tree with Marshall, right? Doing the tree, taking down trees. That was 2 weeks ago, right? And the weeds that were in that, as we were up on the barge, up on workboat, I don't know, 1, 2, I don't know which one it is. But when we were up on the workboat, you could see the weeds all along the shoreline. I'm sure you saw those, Marshall, as well. That's the milfoil and elodea that becomes the forest all the way across the canals coming from the bottom. It doesn't look anything like this today. I mean, what you see topically versus this sonar, right? So that isn't even me going through every single canal. That's just how I've sort of have been spot looking at this topically. What do we see? All right, parrot feather. So parrot's feather, as Greg and I saw today, it is absolutely embedded in the pennywort. It's embedded in that junk that's in front of their residence and on Greg's canal that we will find out what it is, right? But it's embedded in that. It's embedded in the pennywort. And it is completely, I looked at it again as after I dropped Greg off at his dock and I went back down to my place. I drove really slow and went on each side. I had to hurry up and drive through your place because I was afraid it was gonna ruin my motor. But as I was going down the Grand and I could see spots of parrot feather, I mean, it wasn't crazy like what Menard was, but you can see them growing. You can see those little Christmas trees starting all along, all the way down to maybe if you think Grand Canal, right just north of my place, how it kind of opens up a little bit, right? You know, right there. So sort of maybe directly even with Tonquin, right? That seemed to be about where it ended. And I didn't see any more parrot feathers, but it is working its way south, right? Which means be prepared if you're going to get in Fishhook Canal, right? So that's just kind of seems how things are migrating. Now, when we were talking about parrot's feather earlier, parrot's feather has to be treated topically, right? I am not a fan of that. Absolutely not. It's a wand. The stuff, that means it's airborne now. I get very nervous about that. And I'm sure that that is why Doug doesn't want to do it in high winds, right? But we have to make a decision on what we're going to do. Because parrot feather, you're not going to get rid of going in and raking it. It's just, I mean, we would have to literally do almost every bit of shoreline from the Grand Canal, the entire Grand Canal, and every canal and Lake Menard that spins off of the Grand Canal. And if we're going to sit here and try to talk about getting volunteers to do this or residents to go out and do this, I don't know, you guys, you even talked about, I wrote it down, how heavy it was, you know, for you to do that. Could you imagine some folks who are older than you, who are having a hard time? So who's going to go do that for these old folks? Or for young folks who just can't get out there and do that kind of thing, right? So if you say, well, the city can go do it, city means taxpayers' money. All right. This is just my take. You all had your say. Pennywort, okay? Pennywort, I gotta tell you, as we had great discussions, and it was actually kind of individually, but Grant, John, Joe, myself, also Bob Rhodes. Bob also, just so you know, was of the mindset of getting rid of weeds everywhere, okay? So, but things have changed a little bit, and I completely understand the not wanting to eradicate the pennywort, right? It's great. It helps with filtration of the water, great fish habitat, great shoreline, you know, buffering shoreline, because there's folks who don't understand no wake. That's a significant issue in some of our canals. And that helps, right? But the only way to do that is one of two ways. You're either going to get volunteers, again, heavy, or two, we're going to ask the city to go out and go do it, which means council give a whole ton of money to go and pay somebody to either mechanical harvest, and there is a limit to mechanical harvesting and what they can do around docks and shorelines. They can only get so far, okay? So it's something to think about. I'm of the mindset not to do anything this season with pennywort. Okay, but that is with the caveat that there's going to be people, residents, corporation advisory board members who will raise their hand and say, yes, we'll get out there and we'll do what we can. I'm not saying let's go out and get it all, but if I'm going to get on board and I'm going to say, hey, let's not treat it, then there has to be some other means of controlling it. Just letting it do its thing is not an option here. You can't just let something do its thing, right? You look at a flower bed, let Mother Nature be Mother Nature. My wife's out there 7 days a week weeding if she sees a little weed, right? So if she were to just let her garden go, it would be a disaster, right? The aquatic weeds are no different, in my opinion. Okay. All right. So that would actually bring the total down a little bit because he had put in here specifically about pennywort treatment, the cost, right? And specifically for pennywort, it's $1,800 a day, but still it's $1,800. And it's always kind of hard to figure out what $1,800 a day is. But I know that Doug is very diligent in his work and he tries to get it all done in a day. But okay, now I'm going to get to the mechanical harvesting. So the mechanical harvesting, Phyllis and I, we used a calculator and we came up with this whole daily rate and how much that they can do, all of that. You guys have the formula there in front of you. And that's where Phyllis and I came up with the 8 acres. Okay, that's what we came up with 8 acres. They didn't say that. Doug didn't say 8 acres. Phyllis and I just tried to use basic math calculator. So don't laugh, Robert. But what I did do is we went off of the 8 acres and looking at this survey, 8 acres is about 1 Bell Canal. All right, that's what he said. Well, Bell Canal is 7 acres.
Question.
Yeah.
Since Doug didn't list, Bass Canal is being treated because he stated that.
I'm gonna do Bass Canal completely different.
Well, it didn't say, I don't know what the acreage is on Bass Canal.
Oh, okay, all right.
We
We could have Robert do it, but let me go ahead and finish my thing, okay? So, because I'm gonna ask Robert a question. So Robert, I went to Robert and I said, okay, so 8 acres of the Grand Canal, about what is that? And Robert came back and said, I believe the Grand Canal is about 120 feet wide, about 2,900 feet of canal, give or take. J.K. Lewis, which is the North End Grand Canal, to Albatross, or so would be about 8 acres. Is that right, Robert? I just want to make sure that I had that right.
Oh, that's my recollection. Yeah, about 8 acres.
Okay, so what I was thinking when it came to mechanical harvesting is, and I want to caveat this because I'm not saying it, I don't want anyone to misconstrue what I'm saying, but I want this trial to be done in worst case scenario. I don't want it to be done next to a boat ramp. Because if we do it, or an easy access, if we do it there, that's best case scenario. That's how far do they have to travel with this pile of weeds on, because these guys come with 2 vessels, one harvester and one other vessel that they take the weeds from the harvester and put on the vessel, and then they schlep it to wherever, right? So if we go and we do some area, let's say we do Menard. Well, guess what? Menard's got a beautiful boat launch, right? And if you do it there, the boat launch is right there, right? So when we get the final report back from whoever does this contract, and we're listening to all of their logistical issues, the logistical issues probably are not going to entail too much of how far they had to travel to offload those weeds. Looking at the whole system where we are inundated with weeds, the best area is the north part of the Grand Canal. Now, in my opinion, the north end Grand Canal, north of the golf cart bridge, this year is a lost case. It really is. I mean, anyone who could go and walk along that, it just requires so much more than anything that we could do. That's part of a whole different project. That's the North End Grand Canal project. And I think it's difficult for me to put in my mind of spending our hard-earned taxpayers' dollars on a project that is a moot point today. So for me, what I think is maybe from starting right at the south part of the North End of the golf cart bridge, right, just south of it, and as far as we can go for this $45,000, right? Because again, the 8 acres came from Phyllis and I just kind of doing this little thing on a calculator. It could be less. It could certainly probably go much longer. I kind of calculated the figure that Robert gave to me, the North End Grand Canal, J.K. Lewis, but North End Grand Canal to Albatross. And then I put that kind of, sort of, something like this would maybe be from the golf cart bridge to Pacific Avenue. Right? And you know where Pacific Avenue is if you're in the North End Grand Canal, you can't miss it because there's a culvert that is right there at Pacific Avenue. And then you have this junk that extends out from the culvert into the North End Grand Canal, a good solid 20 plus feet. So you can't miss Pacific Avenue. So, but that area up there is completely inundated with the weeds. And there's docks and there's shoreline, there's everything that the mechanical harvesting machine would have to deal with except a bridge, okay? And then where are they then going to take it? From the North End Grand Canal, there's a couple of places, the city has a few properties, but they're, beautifully wooded, right? So, but there's, Marshall, he's, pretty good at that, but don't make it easy. I'm sure you're probably getting your mind going because
I'm thinking about the regulatory issues that come with access points. It takes a while to get some of that permitting to get, access points established. So,
we'll see.
If we're going to try to create new ones, then we need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well ahead of the game.
Well, see, and that's sort of my whole point when it comes to this is I'm not trying to waste I'm not trying to waste our money. I'm just saying that if we do it in an easy place, when we get this final report back from the person to tell us how easy or hard it is and what are the logistical issues, transportation is probably not going to be one that's high on the list. Whereas I think that as soon as you move anywhere in near the Grand Canal, and especially those canals, Blue Heron Bayou, and the other ones, where you're going to go. There is no boat ramp except coming all the way down to Menard or maybe the Texmar thing. If they can get there, I don't know, because it's sort of that little hump thing, so.
It's so shallow.
Yeah. And so I don't know, right? They would have to figure their access points out. So anyways. So Robert, did you see my email that I had sent to Doug today, asking him to please contact you specifically about this portion of the contract?
I don't know if I saw the email, but I did talk to Doug around 2 o'clock today. And that conversation was similar to the discussion I'm hearing right now. I would interject that the job can be broken down into if one, and Doug will do this for us, but one is sitting there with a notepad observing what's going on. You can say, well, it looks like he's clearing so many square feet per hour. And then it looks like he goes about 4 miles per hour when he's taking us off to a site. And it looks like it takes about half an hour to offload the material when he does get to a dock. So any data that we get this year is valuable for future efforts, because whether you contracted with this entity or you were looking at a different entity or just simply trying to budget, you'd have data, a little better idea of how long everything could take, and one could sit there with a ruler and kind of figure out what a particular lake would cost or not. So that was part of the conversation that I had with Doug. It was a little bit opposite of you, to tell the truth. I did want to put it somewhere where they could go a little faster, as opposed to somewhere where there'd be a lot of travel time, but that's just because I figure I can figure travel time. As long as we're a little diligent and get a little bit of data there to kind of figure what this remote area of the lake would cost versus one that we're making it look too good. We're right next to a dock and that kind of thing. And the answer is kind of somewhere in the middle. But I did have that conversation with him. We were also exploring, and I know nothing about it, but are there any when you're looking at this vegetation, what what is besides if someone is just, does not like herbicides or would prefer to minimize herbicides, which is a common legitimate point of view. But if you had to do just part one and part the other, when you're looking at a particular area, what makes sense to use mechanical harvesting on? If you've only got limited resources, you can do 8 acres a year, 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 acres a year. Then what would you target with mechanical harvesting versus what would you spray? Or leave alone and not spray is probably legitimate too in certain areas. So that was the nature of the conversation with Doug. I don't have, I've got the other part of it is just procurement. It is taxpayer dollars. We get audited, a lot of other things. So if we're in a rush this year because I'm just way behind, I apologize. I may only be able to go up to $30,000 and not have to rebid the entire thing and go back to council. So that may be a limit. I haven't worked all that out yet, but I wanted to disclose that I may have that limitation. Other than that, and Doug said as part of his service, they would be monitoring the company and taking notes. That's what I know about mechanical harvesting this year.
All right. Well, so now if we were to just say, well, we don't want to use Northwest Aquatic Ecosystems. I'm just asking this question. If we don't want to use Northwest Aquatic Ecosystems to do the mechanical harvesting portion, how long would it take to get the RFI out and to go through that whole process of RFI? I would assume we would have to go back through council again, and then have the bids come in and all of this. Could it be done so that we would be able to have at least the first, because it's going to have to be a good solid 2 different harvesting periods, right? And that's addressed in here as well. But 2 different harvesting periods for this season. Could it be done so that the first harvesting could be done in about, let's say, the 3rd week of April, about a month from now? I'm sorry, did I say April? I did say July. Never mind me.
Yeah, I'd love to have April back. I need to look into it a little closer. I just and this is part of the conversation with Doug, is we're very late in the season. So whether it's contracted under Northwest Aquatic Ecosystems, the other thing is that reality is if I do try to put this out to bid, I'm not seeing a lot of competition out there. At least that's what I'm hearing, is there's not a lot of people that are offering this service as a contractor.
There is one gentleman, and I remember Nick telling me about this person, and I think that that's the same one that Joe Hubachek has talked to, and he is in Rochester. Yep.
Back east, Rochester, or is that in Washington?
Payless.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I don't, I've heard the discussions today too about, when the company that we're thinking about using their rig as a system that does take the material and it screens it, and then it's taken and put on a dump truck by a conveyor belt. We probably don't want something that just grinds it up underwater, because that's what the herbicides do, right? You kill the weeds, all that carbon's still in the water. It takes oxygen out of the water, et cetera. So if you just grind up the vegetation and leave it there, it's kind of the same thing. Plus, I guess the little pieces, they'll float away and make something else. But even then, that's 2. And the company that Northwest Aquatic Ecosystems is talking to, I'm not saying they're the one, but it does bring the cost into question, right? Well, you paid too much. Someone else could have done twice as much, or they weren't going as fast as they could. But I get the sense that it's a demonstration, and they're going to want to show that they can do some pretty good production, so that we budget, and maybe we're not doing all of the lakes, but we're demonstrating that we can do this, and there's value to it. To get to stop going in circles and get back to your question, to put this thing back out to bid and go back out to council. I don't know what schedule he was thinking here, but I really wouldn't see us doing anything until probably August. That's the best case. Get all that and get somebody on board. And in the end, it'd probably be the same company. I could technically, technically, I guess the other thing I could do is to go up to the full 45, is to take the pricing that Doug has, and I could take that to council and say that because of our procurement rules, we need to bring this up with council one more time. That would be faster. I could do that and check the box. It's a little bit painful because it's just the one quote. So there's that option too, and that would be a little bit faster. But I even if I put this out to bid, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of people out there doing this, and it's a demonstration.
Exactly, and we knew that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you've been very helpful with that. Thank you. Okay. So, well, here we are, folks. So now we have to decide, what are we going to do? I want to go ahead and talk about mechanical harvesting first, right? So do we all agree to move forward with the mechanical harvesting? Yes?
Yes,
Yes?
but I have a
Okay.
statement I gotta make.
Okay.
So I think the company, can I mention a company here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Northwest Aquatic Management was the company that's out of Rochester. I had a good time to talk with him about how they harvest. They don't grind it. They have to cut it. They can't pull it out of the ground like we thought originally, but they do cut it as far down as they can get it and pull it onto the conveyor. And they got two conveyors. They got one that's at the end of the harvester that they offload under that, as they're transporting that to an off station. They got another one that comes in behind it.
Yeah.
So there's always something behind it. They don't have to stop and wait for someone to go dump it and come back. And obviously that's hours eaten up right there.
And same with this one too.
And so, yeah, I don't know about this grinding. So when he was talking about grinding it, I don't know what he's talking about. That's not what they do.
Okay.
They do cut it, and they do haul it off, and they put it on the barge, and then they haul it away and they dump it. They'll offload it wherever we want.
Okay.
We have to provide a dumpster for them to dump it into and have somebody haul it away.
Right. Yeah. And
We
that's,
have to provide that. They will not provide that.
yeah. And where these folks take care of all that.
Who's that, Gorland?
Yeah. These.
Oh, company he's using?
Yes.
Well, what is it? What are the rates? I'm just curious because I don't think they were that expensive. And right now they've got proven lakes they're doing it in. I don't know if Doug has proven, I mean, is there lakes we can, that he's done it in already?
Yeah, they do it throughout PNW. But they take Pacific Northwest.
Peanut. Yeah, sorry.
What is the
I thought it was a lake somewhere and I go, where in the heck is that?
Yeah. Okay, but so anyways, I think we have already kind of hashed that out with Robert is that in order to use anybody else, we're talking that's going to prolong the mechanical harvesting.
So we have to get done door, what you're saying.
I would say probably for this year, that's what we need to do. Yeah.
But my philosophy is until we actually start doing it,
Okay.
we're not gonna know what the results are. We assume certain, have you ever seen it harvested? I haven't. I've never seen one harvested out here. I don't know anybody that has, except maybe some people have been around for 20 years.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry.
Because they first tried it in the 90s for 1 month, and then they quit doing it.
It wasn't in the 90s. It
No, I'm
was
not
great.
talking about, I know that he's doing, I'm talking about we hired someone in the 90s. And the reason
Who
why.
was hired in the 90s?
I went to the city open forum. We were able to ask questions, and I forget what the gentleman's name.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
He had
Okay,
mentioned
well,
that they
but so
tried it
here-
for 1 month.
Okay, but so here's my thing, really and truly, right? I mean, I don't know that I can, I have to tell you, on some level, I'm up to here with everything that's been done in the past. I really am, right? Is we have to deal with where we are today and the way forward, right? I feel that I have been educated enough. My residents who have lived here for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, right? And let me tell you, those residents, they're not sitting here, right? Doing anything, right? These folks who are very nice, I'm glad you guys come and I hope you come to all of our future ones, right? But I gotta deal with what's in the water and I gotta deal with what money do we have and what is the way forward. It's the whole point, I'll say this real quick. It's the whole point on why I have pounded the point that we need to get the IAVMP done. Now, thankfully for Robert, he and Scott Anderson got the thing done because it wasn't done on time before, but let's not rehash that, right? We're not dealing with the past. So they got it done. We're now moving into IAVMP that should be signed any day now by the mayor. And then we're into IAVMP land. And then hopefully we can get the city to fund a lake management study and a stormwater master plan, which will greatly help us in what do we do with this waterway system. Okay, but I have to deal in June of 2022. Okay, I'm just saying, right? So again, when it comes time for those two things, Joe, you need to go to there and you need to go to those public meetings and say all this stuff.
I already have.
Okay, well, okay, all right. So, all right. So mechanical harvesting. Now, really quick, what does everybody think about the best place to do it?
I understand the Grand Canal situation. I do not see the necessary controls we can do to keep what treatment that is done from interfering with the results of genetical testing. I would suggest that we look at one of the bell canals that is a little more contained and not as much water flow going by them. I see that.
Mhm.
That's why, yeah.
So you're, this is what we just discussed before, more on board with the Bell Canal.
I
Absolutely.
am more in line with doing a bell canal than dealing with a larger body of water that we do not have as good a control of what is going on to know if this is working or not.
That's definitely a great point. It is. What I was kind of thinking is that north and Grand Canal portion, right? And if we do the north and Grand Canal and there is any flow going over the weir, then obviously the water is gradually at a snail's pace moving south, right? Towards the weir,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So if we were to say, okay, if we say we're going to do any kind of herbicide treatment on the Grand Canal, but it has to stop here, or we say, look, we leave that up to between Doug and the mechanical harvesting person and say, how far back do you think? But see, then we sort of get into this, that if they say, well, we have to, who knows, 500 feet south of it, I don't know, I'm making it up, right? But we need to have X amount of buffer. Well, then those weeds in that area of the Grand Canal are just gonna sit there because you'll have mechanical harvesting and then you'll have the weeds taken care of.
Because even though even though you're saying it is going towards the rear, you still have wind directional changes.
Yeah.
That is gonna change the direction of your flow.
It does, yeah. Well, at least the topical part. Great, what do you think?
I still think North End Grand Canal, because I didn't even think about the different obstacles. I think it'd be good to be able to get around and see how many docks they have, how well they maneuver around docks and all that stuff. I don't know, they're docks. So I did 6 of them, but I still think.
John, what do you think?
I'm leaning with Phyllis. I think part of it needs to be, what's worst case scenario? You know, you can go out there and mow north end of Grand Canal, piece of cake, transport it, you know, down the road a bit, piece of cake. But when you're over in a finger canal or an offshoot canal, that's where you're gonna find out what the work is really like.
Well, and then as far as shorting the weeds on Bell Canal, we do have the option of going into Lake Menard, and you have the boat ramp to down offload stuff too, and also the kayak part. But the question comes there is, can they get under the bridge with their equipment? The Razor Clan Bridge.
Oh, I'm sure they can get under that.
It's like 20 feet, isn't it?
But
I mean,
Well,
that's
yeah,
a
but
14 foot.
well, it's like you may be able to get under it, but can you? get
Oh, you're
through?
talking, you gotta do that sandbar.
The sandbar that's there. So with that, I mean, you need to look at that aspect. And so I was thinking, you know, the worst case scenario versus the best case scenario. And that one is kind of in the middle,
Yeah,
kind of. It's
yeah.
like, if you can get under there, then it's kind of a medium scenario going, it's not that far to offload. But if you're in and you can't get under that bridge and you have to take it to, where would you take it?
Exactly.
Worst
Exactly.
case scenario.
you're, because I think, you know,
Marshall, you're listening. Don't make this easy now.
Don't make it easy.
No, you know, it's, we're dealing with a similar thing in the cleanup of the Oya ditch going from the north end of Grand Canal up to State Route 115, access and getting stuff out. And we're contemplating using a boom truck and craning the stuff out in areas where you can get, you know, like if you were to be able to get a bunch of material right underneath the Point Brown Bridge, you know, you could set a boom truck there and crane stuff out. I mean, so maybe something like that is an option for, you know.
But actually, this is actually a good point, because it would then bring up what my whole point was, is I was hoping to try to get the most worst case scenario, all obstacles, right? Instead of, hey, let's do South Lake Menard. Right? I mean, and just make it super easy, not only for them to get their machines in there, but for them to literally do it and then get it out, right? I mean, who wouldn't love something easy, right? But we all know, who've worked on these waterways for years, that there's nothing easy about it.
well, there's
Right?
depending
So
on
if someone else would feel some pain, who's getting paid to feel it.
depending on how much money you want to spend.
Well, no, we have to keep it. We got.
I know, I was gonna say, you could always chopper the machine in, chopper the crap back out. I mean, you know, that's how far you want to go with it.
Yeah. I'm not writing that check out. So, alrighty. John, did you?
Yeah, I just, like I said, I agree with
Same
Phyllis, is that North Grand Canal is too easy.
Yeah, all right.
Go up one side, come back down, back and forth like you're mowing a big patch of front yard.
Okay,
No obstacles, no nothing.
all right. Joe?
Part of harvesting,
Yes.
I think probably looking at the maps that I have a chance to see here, and they're probably, like you say, worse than they are according to this map. I'm thinking probably the Bell Canal area. There's a lot going on there, and it hasn't even bloomed yet. So I like to see, you know, as much harvesting as we can there, just to get an idea how this is gonna go. And that will be a difficult area to do. So they'll give us an idea if this is feasible or not. The Grand Canal, I don't know how much of the Grand Canal we can get, with what money we got. But I will say this much, we're gonna have to figure out some way in the future to come out more of a budget to do this. But it is gonna cost more money. But for what we have right now, the $45,000 or whatever you're thinking, I just had to say that though.
No, I hear you, I hear you. Well, you know.
Probably
and-
the Bell
and
Canal area,
That's something still. I
and
mean,
north
and
of the
Robert,
Bell Canal, probably.
and Robert alluded to that, we're gonna, he might have to take that back to council. So we'll give him the recommendation and then we'll go from there. Okay. Graham,
I can go either.
okay. I know that you were thinking about doing the Fishhook Canal. One of the things that concerns me about doing Fishhook Canal on this is the amount of time that they're gonna be on station. And we know that canal is the only canal to go to and from Duck Lake. And that I really think that would hinder people moving around the waterways. If we, in the middle of July and probably the end of August or September, who knows when they're gonna do it, but for those two, and we already know that, well, one, it is narrow, two, it is shallow, and it will be as the water's going low. And so when I was thinking about that, I didn't suggest Fishhook just because I think that that's going to be a nightmare in and of itself with just trying to get people through, right? And actually not so tough with getting the weeds out because they can always be taken right down there to where the weir is and they can be taken out there. Just so you know, that was sort of my train of thought on Fishhook. Okay, now does anybody have I can go ahead and just do the recommendation because I'm sending this recommendation to Scott Anderson, the city administrator, and Robert Lund, the city engineer. And I'll carbon copy everybody, and Rob and Marshall as well. But I can just go ahead and say Bell Canals, right? Or do you have a preference of which canal we should use? Or I will say this, when it comes to flow, the south end of the Grand Canals, which is going to be Starry Night Passage, that south end one, I would not recommend that one. Because that's going to be right where the flow for Lake Menard comes into, and if there's any kind of herbicidal treatment that is put in Menard, it's going to go into that canal right there.
Yeah, because they will treat right there.
Mhm.
They always treat right there.
Well, because that's more
Yeah.
shallows, right? Which we just saw today. I think almost rather up against that sandbar again. But so that would be my only thing. I could write the recommendation up that way and say Bell Canals, we do not want to do the southern canal because of any potential flow or if herbicides are put in the water.
The southern two.
Southern two,
Yeah, because this one here feeds into that. They're all just right there. But as far as acreage goes on them, where's my list?
yeah, they're 8.
They're all pretty much 8.
Yeah, because the Bell Canal, which he also include, the Bell Canal is from the Grand Canal under the bridge and all of the upper channel part of it. So that whole thing is 33 acres. So each canal is probably just shy of 8, probably more like 7-ish. But again, remember when we're talking 8 acres, it was just Phyllis and I using a little calculator from this little formula. And when it comes down to the nitty gritty, we'll have to figure it out.
Well, Doug did state in here that they could do about 2 acres per day.
Yeah, 2 acres a day, exactly right. And that's where we came up with this.
How we came up with our numbers.
So do you guys feel the same way that Bell Canal to North Canals?
Yes.
Not the southern?
Yeah, but I agree with that. Because you're right, the flow is gonna go right into the south end of the canal, south end of the canal. So whatever herbicides are in there are gonna go right to the weir.
All right. So really quick, before we get to the real biggie, I want to talk about Bass Canal, right? What do you want to do about Bass Canal?
Nothing,
Nothing.
nothing. If you're asking me,
Yes,
And
that's
if
fine.
I mean, as far as I am concerned, no, I'm not the only one that lives on here, obviously, but as far as I'm concerned, we leave it alone. And the only reason I say that is because that last time that we herbicided that canal, it devastated it. It absolutely devastated it.
I get that.
I mean, it was a nice clear water, everything was great, there was weeds in it, yes, I agree. But once we got eradicated those weeds, it turned brown and ugly and it's been brown and ugly ever since. Because you can't keep water clean without weeds, that's what keeps the water clean.
And you said that you talked with about 6
I
people.
talked to 6 people that live close by me.
Is that 6 people total or
No,
6
no,
houses?
6 families, 6 households,
Bob and Carol included?
Bob and Carol included. Then Bob actually mentioned to me on Friday, him and another friend who also lives on Bass Canal. I never met him before, but he came in with Bob and he said the same thing. He goes, I don't want to see any herbicides in there anymore. Everybody's seeing the same thing.
Well, I think,
It's devastating.
like you and Grant and I talked about, probably the only way you're gonna get an accurate count on it is to those people that live on Bass Canal, we get their addresses, we send them a mailer and say, hey, you can contact us on this website, you can contact us via mail, whatever. Name, address, and what are your thoughts? You can't, and Joe, I agree with you a lot on this, but yeah, you're gonna have, okay, because of 6 families saying we don't want anything done, well, there may be 30 other families that next spring go ape shit on us because nothing was done.
Well, that's actually my point. It's what I said earlier is that who's going to receive these phone calls? And I'm going to use this as an example. In 2019, we voted the advisory board in conjunction with the corporation, because Bruce was part of that, remember? And we recommended to the city at that time, Nick Bird, not to do the Bass Canal. Okay? Nick Bird got phone calls before, and I'll tell you how it happened, is people on the Bass Canal didn't get the little notice, right? When they found out that everybody else got notices, they called Nick and say, Nick, how come I didn't get my notice? Nick says, because I'm not treating Bass Canal. Whoa. Bruce Malloy gets phone calls. I do. People inundated Nick Bird with phone calls. It spread like wildfire. So again, I'll stand and as the chair of the advisory board, and I'll say, listen, we as the advisory board said no based upon this recommendation from, I don't know the 6 families, but Joe Hubachek. I'll use Bob and Carol's name because they said it to me as well, that they don't want it done. And then you guys are gonna have to deal with it.
That's fine.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's a threat
No,
or if that is a
please,
lie. I don't know
not
what
a
that is. I'll talk to anybody that has a problem.
yeah, thank you. It's not a threat, it is fact. The point is this, I mean, I have no idea what they're gonna call and what kind of uproar they're gonna make with the city. Because there are some folks who are used to having it treated, right? It was the whole point on what I said last year when I advised both you and Bob and Carol, went over to Bob and Carol's house, sat in the living room and said, look, my suggestion would be you guys walk around to all the residents on Bass and Dolphin and get their opinions of what you want. So here we are a whole year later, and I get 6 families out of, I don't even know how many, that's probably not even a quarter of what just lives on Dolphin.
No, but they are scattered up and down Bass Canal.
Yeah, I
They're
get
not
that.
one group.
I get it.
She
So,
got 700
So,
signatures.
yeah, I get that, but that was a whole different issue. That wasn't about this. So,
Well, I think,
All right.
again, contact every walking body that lives on Bass Canal and say, do you want or not want? And if you do not want, what are your options? What should be done? I'm gonna take, for example, Steve Bova, when he went on the big old campaign with his minion to stop the spraying on the sides of the road. half dozen people started harassing the sprayer. Sprayers left, city still haven't paid the contract, roads aren't done anymore because of a small handful of people. Well, now it's time to hell with a small handful of people. What do you people that live on Bass Canal expect and want? And what are you willing to sacrifice? If they don't want chemicals, then fine, tell us. You're gonna go out there and do it manually yourself. As I asked Steve Bobo with the street spray, the people were gonna maintain it themselves. And I asked him, I said, is there any repercussions from the city if the homeowner does not maintain it? And he said, there shouldn't be. Okay, well, Bass Canal, no repercussions. If it turns into a swamp within 5 years, so be it, because a half dozen people said they didn't want it treated or cleaned.
So I get that, right? I get that. The point that I was really and truly trying to make, Joe, is that, and I probably just didn't say it so well, because you're right, it probably did sound somewhat maybe threatening. But the point is this, is that if it's 6 families and you guys did not go around and talk to everybody specifically, not about, let me sign something that says the city needs to do more, right? But that these folks understand, hey, should we should we treat it with herbicides or not? That is not what people signed a document about. I know that because I know what Bob and Carol were doing. And so therefore, these folks, we really have no idea. Do they want to treat it? Do they not want to treat it? We just know that there's most of all those people, because I know they walked up and down those roads and they got almost everyone to sign that. But that document said that they believe that the city needs to be more proactive with the waterways. Well, who knows what that means? So what our body is designed here to do, the Fresh Waterways Advisory Board, is designed to get all of the material. We need to listen to what the residents have to say, right? Not be closed-minded, listen to what the residents have to say. And we provide a recommendation to the city, who then does the makes a final decision. We're going to do this, we're going to pay this person will be contracted to do it. But so if we have one person who is speaking for 6 families on a canal that has a whole bunch more than that, and those people come back, then I kind of feel like, well, I don't know that we're really getting a good
We're not represented.
yeah, thank you, good representation of that.
Yeah, if you ask me
Yes,
what I think
no, I
we should
know.
do with that, and I'm telling you, no herbicides. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Now, yeah, there's no way I can ask everybody up and down Bass Canal, and you know what? You may end up with 2 or 3 prominent people in Ocean Shores that may be able to pull some strings and get it done anyway, even though everybody else doesn't want it done. I've seen that happen before too.
Well, one
So, I
thing
mean-
here, I will say this about this, is that Doug did not include how much Bass Canal would be. And I think that there was probably just some confusion on as to whether Bass Canal was actually, because he didn't even survey it the first time. He
Well,
had
there's
to
no
come back
weed in it
down.
right now anyway. I mean, it's just a brown mud hole right now.
Well, there is weeds in there, the survey.
Yeah, I tell you, I don't know where they're at. I don't see them.
So, all right, well, so then what we need to do is, I'm sorry, what?
They only have lilies in there. I was there with one of his neighbors.
Okay, all right. So please just let us go ahead and discuss this, okay? So for Bass Canal, what is it that the board wants to do with Bass Canal? I'm fine, for me, I am fine with leaving it. It has been left before in the past, right? And I'm fine with leaving it untouched.
Joe, I have to make a comment when you say you don't see the weeds. Well, the whole purpose of the underwater surf ray is to show that the weeds are there, you just can't see them. And so you may not see them, that is true, but that doesn't mean they're not there. But I'm fine with no treatment there.
I don't care either way.
John,
Let it be.
all right, Joe,
So let it be.
Grant,
Well,
Let it be. Okay, so I don't know any real easy way of doing this other than, and we're not gonna hash it out much longer. I think we all kind of know what, everything that is on page 17, Grand Canal, the Bell Canals, Fish Hook, Marsh Shallows, Blue Heron Bayou, Bridges Bayou, Ocean Wind, Otter Alley, Balloon Bayou, Raccoon Lagoon, Pawnee Green, that's the one I was thinking about. Chancellor Murr. I'm gonna come back to that. Lake Menard and all right, so for me, I say that those areas that have been identified as recommended by Northwest Aquatic Ecosystem to be treated, I recommend that they be treated. That's mine. Phyllis?
One thing I didn't do, I didn't add this up. Did you add it?
It comes, well, the whole total comes up to 62.5, but let me do it. You guys can go ahead and talk while I'm doing this.
No, that's fine. And our budget is 60?
Yes. All right, so just that is taking out the shoreline, penny wart, 1,800 a day, taking out for right now the shoreline parafeather, because that is a whole different treatment. And also taking out the Chancellor Murr.
Or due west to me.
That is 42,000. Yeah, I don't know. Yes.
Well, then we look how that we have, regardless, the administrative costs.
Right.
Paid,
No,
like
exactly
11
right. Yeah.
11, 14.
No, it's just to do that portion is 42,000.
Well, this all, as I said to Steve, this parafeather cost that we're incurring today should have not even been listed on here because of lack of follow through on getting our LVMP to get grants to treatment parafeather.
Well, thank goodness that that's going so that
Yeah,
we can
thank
get
goodness
grants.
that we can.
And we can get grants, not just for the parafeather, but for anything that we have out there that the state of Washington Noxious Weed Board deems as invasive weed. We
Find
can,
out that stuff.
we can work with that, yeah, especially that junk. Who knows what that is?
So Marshall, with the IVMAP being approved, maybe you're not the right person to
No,
ask.
Robert.
Okay, Robert, with the being approved shortly, does that automatically go to Sarah to start looking for grants that are available for our treatment for our parafeather?
Yeah, I mean, it's a small city. I wouldn't say automatic. So your efforts to communicate with us and remind us do help. But yeah, my understanding is that it does, it makes us eligible for other funding opportunities. But keep talking to us as well at these meetings and saying, hey, we're close, or what can we apply for? And also I would point out that in the IMVMP, they are supposed to also, Terry's supposed to address the available funding sources and strategies for approaching Department of Ecology or whoever it is to get that money and bring it to Ocean Shores.
Okay, so, all right. So we're talking about the treatment, page 17, everything except the Chancellor Murr Northeast Bridge site. And we'll do that separately. But your opinion on the herbicide treatment for these other areas?
I don't agree with any herbicide treatments.
Okay.
Period. Absolutely, period. And I mean, you guys are gonna have to work around me on that because I can't approve it. I think it's bad for us. I don't think it's ever fixed anything except on a temporary basis. We gotta find a better way to fix it.
So, John, what's your take on the treatment, herbicide treatment of these areas? The Grand Canal, the canals that spin off in Lake Menard and Fishhook.
Yeah, so, and Fishhook.
Yeah.
I didn't look at that part of it that closely. Is there anything about the north end of Grand Canal in here?
No, because what we can do is recommend, and on this recommendation, I write up and say nothing north of.
Yeah, I think that's
the golf cart bridge. No, because last year there was a confusion on that and they did it, and we'll
Because
put that in.
yeah, I mean, that's almost a waste as it is right now. And Marshall's gonna put that nice park up there for everybody.
So are you saying a yes to that?
I would say yes.
Okay, Grant? All right, the Chance Olamere Northeast Bridge site, that's the cattails and the lily pads and all that. Where that is, you guys know where that is, right?
Yeah.
That's going under that bridge. What's your take on that?
I haven't looked at it. I should probably go up there and take a look at it. My question is, does it need the powers of Doug Dorling to clean it up?
I think in the past, Doug hasn't been able to get access to
He
it.
has to stop right at the bridge.
Yeah, he has to
Yeah.
stop at the
So,
bridge to go.
Why
anything further.
bother? Um,
You know? It's,
that's the Chance Bridge?
yeah.
Yeah, it's only about a foot and a half deep in there.
Yeah, you know, what I've seen of the Chance Bridge,
You get a basketball through there, that's about it.
yeah. I don't think I would even bother with that area up there. I can get, well, I've taken my Bayliner.
So- Phyllis, you're a no on that,
To get that.
on the Chance?
Before going to the bridge.
I know. I'm a no.
Greg? No. John?
No.
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 Grant? The Chance? All right. Got it, none, so we'll mark that out. Okay, now the parrot feather. All right, this is the last one to discuss is the parrot feather. That is, it's 2 treatments required. And you can do one in one, you can treat it in one day and it has to come back again a second day. And that is going to be he has here $1,900 times 2, so 3,800. So doing all of the bell canals, the thing is I didn't see parrot feather in all the bell canals. Okay, so here's my deal with the parrot feather. Is
I'm sorry, I thought you said there was parrot feather. In the
no in the open, in the front. As
Oh,
we
the
were getting
entrance?
into it, we didn't see parrot feather in the canals. And actually, we didn't see any parrot feather in Starry Night Passage either, did we? No, it was up there right past the Point Brown Bridge, and then that sort of was the end of it.
But here on his main parrot feather infestation is like,
Yeah, so,
yeah, he's not addressing those at all.
but it's still, I mean, there's
It's still
spots
there.
all over.
See, because the parrot feather, since he came out on May 17th, what we saw today has seriously,
Did he say what chemical he's using for parrot feather, does he say?
Yeah, it's in
I didn't see that.
on his list
Is it
of-
Renovate?
A Mazamox. A Mazamox.
I guess we have to kind of go with what Doug says, because if he thought, he would be saying he thought, because he does understand fertilizer. And it's like, we're gonna have to do it. I mean, you saw what happened down there by the Tonkin Bridge.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's like, that's where it was first spotted.
See, because my thing is it's just throughout, it is so much worse than when he was here on May 17th.
Exactly.
And so I'm
it's
just
because-
kind of wondering if we say yes to, or should we keep it in just certain areas? Because as he gets in there and he goes, oh, there's more. I mean, and then it extends and extends and extends. That's sort of my concern. Is, in other words, that it's a lot more than what he has quoted us.
It very well probably is, because as he states, he gives the dates of when
Yes.
he did the surveys. And he also stated that the water was a lot cooler in this time of year than what it was, and what was gonna happen when the water warmed up. We have had warmer days. The weeds are growing faster, but this next week coming, they're just gonna explode. And that includes paratrine.
Yes.
It's not gonna get rid of it this year
Well, so,
by any means.
right, but my,
It's not.
yeah, oh, no, absolutely not. But my whole thing with it is that it's so much worse than what he saw. Should we just sort of stay concentrated, or do we say, okay, the Bell Canals? And again, I didn't go up and down each one, so I don't know what that really means. We definitely know all about Wawona Avenue and Sea Breeze. That's that whole Lake Menard issue. Now, where we could get rid of a big cost is the northern wetland. That's north of the golf cart bridge. That's what he refers to, and it says northern wetland.
So he's talking about that. It's like, there's no activity down there other than a bird activity to cause it to spread. The boat can make it down there. And so that's 2,000. That's 4,000.
That's 4,000 total.
I say don't do that.
And the offshoot canal, so the offshoot
What's
canals
that?
and the grand, see, and he didn't give a final figure, probably maybe thinking because of what we're talking about right now, how much more is this gonna spread? Right, and that is where it primarily is. It primarily is in those, the Tawny's Dream, Blue Heron Bayou, all of those, and the Grand. That sits, and of course, Lake Menard.
Yeah. And Fort Piana, his biggest cost is wetland and then Lake Menard. And he probably just been using gas on meters.
I just wonder if he doesn't treat northern wetland, if it just keeps drifting down and propagating, and that's my concern. But I mean, right now, I don't think it's.
Well, actually, anything's gonna move down from that, because we've got pennywort that will start letting loose and all of
And
that.
if it's tangled up in that, it's gonna move right along. We're almost to the same situation
Yeah.
as last year when
Yes.
we were discussing this, and we were like, we have no choice
Yeah.
to get it under control again. And that is because last year, we're a little bit earlier this year, but last year we were late in getting it done, and it was out of control totally when we did it. And now this year, it is going to be the same situation over again because of not having it done on a timely basis.
Well, you saw the email I sent out today. You didn't see that one, but that was one that I went and sent back to Doug and kind of put a little placeholder there because he wanted to, he sent me an email yesterday and said, hey, any headway on a recommendation, because I want to schedule it. So I told him, I said, we're shooting for before mid-July.
Yes.
after Fourth, between it, right in that time, so he could fit us in there. I haven't heard back from him and I don't have an email from him. I can cut, you know.
Last year it was August. Typically.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, typically in the past, when we did the treatments, it was the weekend after 4th of July.
Okay. Well, no, that's what we're definitely shooting for.
Yeah.
So do you, for the parrot feather control, again, looking here at your page 17, do you guys agree with the parrot feather control less the northern wetland, which is again north of the golf cart bridge?
Yes, I agree with that. No northern wetland.
No northern wetland. Greg?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, see what happens, I guess. It's spreading all over.
John?
Yeah, I agree that I would leave it alone for now. Yeah.
Joe?
I don't have a safety data sheet on that product. I got it for everything else, but not that one.
Not that one?
No.
Okay.
And I want to know just, I mean, I'm looking at some of these, like Renovate. I wouldn't put that
I
stuff.
don't think that was the question.
Well, it is a question. You're asking me, do I want to spray directly parrot feather? I need to know what it is.
What was the one you said? You said what?
Well, this one like Renovate. I mean, I got a safety data sheet on that one there and I wouldn't give that to my enemy.
I don't know what I don't.
It's not, they're not using it. I'm just saying, I got the safety data sheet last time we did it, but they weren't using Renovate.
Yeah.
So I don't have it for this product.
Do you see how it's spelled, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Imaginax, and there's no safety data sheet for it. So I don't know what it is, or, how it's going to affect everything around it. Is it gonna kill animals and what's it gonna do? I don't know. I mean, some stuff can be pretty rough. And since it's topical, where you gotta add it directly on the plant, since there's only a little piece of the plant sticking out of the water, how do you do that?
Oh, there's a big piece of sticking out of the.
I imagine there's some in it, but I imagine they all like that. There's probably some sticking out, but there's probably a lot underneath the water too that you can't get to.
Yeah, no, because it's like pennywort. It sits on top of the water. It
Doesn't it grow up in the bottom and just a piece of it sticks out?
No, it's like pennywort. It's got the topical root.
Okay,
Just
So
like
it
pennywort, how it floats.
so it's floating.
That's why it's getting all over the place.
Okay, got it. All right. I thought it grew from the bottom.
No, not the parrot's feather. So you're a no on no parrot's feather?
Yeah, probably no, without knowing anything more, I'm a no. I don't want anybody getting sick off anything that I voted down.
I hear you. And then Grant?
Oh, I'm not sure we need to let that parrot feather spread.
I'm sorry, say again?
I'm not sure we should let that parrot feather spread.
So we should treat it?
I'd go for treating it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in the Bishop Canal. Okay, all right. So I have all this down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try my very best to put it all together. Phyllis, I'm gonna run it by you, if that's cool, right? And just make sure that I've got everything down, and then I will forward this with all the recommendations here from the advisory board to Scott Anderson, the city administrator, and Robert Lund, the city engineer, and then I'll have you on there as well, Marshall. Okay, all right, so real quick, we're gonna go around real quick, go to the order. Phyllis, Greg, John,
Yeah, I think
Joe.
I'm sorry, I was daydreaming there for a minute. So what did you ask?
It's good to the order.
Oh,
Last time.
I'm nothing.
Grant,
The corporation's got rakes, they got grappling hooks for anybody who wants to snag some of these weeds and pull them out themselves.
okay. You have those at your place? Well, I have the rakes.
I've got
at
the
mine.
grappling hook.
And you have the grappling hooks? Okay. All right, I'll put that out there.
And then people contact you, or
Yeah.
contact for that.
Contact. Yeah, contact. Okay, great. All right. So today, it is 5:20. in the afternoon, and I adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting will be held July 11th, since the 4th of July is a holiday. July 11th, 2 p.m. here at the library.
Good work, everyone.
Thank